number 22 Utah at number 17 Arizona, 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on the Pac-12 network. That is a crime that this game is on the Pac-12 network. If you're wondering why the Pac-12 is dying, man, it's because we're putting a great game like this on a channel that nobody has. So I hate that. It should have been a Fox or FS1 game at least. But the storyline of this game, Dalton, is Arizona having an unbelievable hot streak right now. It's won 4 straight games, including 3 of those 4 games were against top 25 opponents in number 19 Washington State, number 11 Oregon State, who we'll get to in a little bit, and number 19 UCLA. And also the 2 weeks before that, the Wildcats only lost to Washington by 7, I believe. And they lost to Washington and USC by a combined 9 points. And USC and Washington were both top 10 teams at that point. So Arizona had close losses to them, and then they beat 3 top 25 teams and just beat Colorado this past Saturday as well. Now they're playing a Utah team, has lost 2 of their last 3 games. Granted, it was against Oregon and Washington, which is, the class of the Pac-12 right now. But I'm really interested in seeing if Arizona, kind of one of the hottest teams in college football right now, that kind of came out of nowhere. I'm excited to see if they can keep this going against Utah.
This was a fun one just because we haven't had Arizona yet, and the tape watch on this was kind of funny. Here's the best way I can describe this. It is probably the least flashy hot streak you will ever find.
Yeah.
I'll start with the running game. Jonah Coleman, all right, he didn't really start getting run till week 4. He leads the Power 5 in rushing grades since that point. Mm-hmm. And it's not blazing speed either. What it is, I'm going to tell you something. You like what some other places call angry runs, right? Jonah Coleman is the king of it. You talk about a presence physically. I think the only guy that we've watched this year more physical at running back than him is probably Audric Estime. Yeah. It's the same. This guy is angry. What's that phrase? He runs like he's mad at the ground. Yeah. I mean, the stiff arm, the physicality, there's not a lot of breakaway 25, 30-yard runs, but there's a ton of runs in here of 10 to 20 yards that he runs people over. The tone he sets for their offense is wild. I mean, he's the guy that safeties don't want to come up and hit. And the other thing, too, and I have to give Jedd Fisch a ton of credit for this, because he came into the year thinking he was going to have Jaden DeLaura and the dual threat and things a little more open and more big plays, right? And then DeLaura went down with the injury, and Noah Fafita came in. He was kind of the sensation when they almost beat USC. Jedd Fisch has done exactly what you should do when your backup quarterback comes in. And the term I have for this offense is high percentage, okay? He's completing 73% of his passes, 78% adjusted, 6th lowest average depth of target in the country, and a time to throw of 2.54 seconds, which is in the 15 or 20 quickest, somewhere in there, right? High percentage plays. Run the ball with Coleman, get 6 yards, 12 yards at a time, somewhere in that range. Not a lot of breakaway in this offense. They don't have a ton of speed, but high percentage plays that keep moving the chains. In the passing game, screens, quick passes, play action. You don't get much deeper than a play action, a 15-yard in route over the middle. It's almost a lot it's like the college version of the way the Tennessee Titans were playing when Henry and Tannehill, and that was really working. Before, for some reason, they traded A.J. Brown. It's kind of like that a little bit, where they just move the chains, and especially the physicality of Coleman starts it. Because you just can't arm tackle this guy. No, I'm telling you, there is not. If you just like 1980s physical running, this is the guy to watch. And it's a fun matchup when you've got a Utah team whose run defense, at least by the grading, is not particularly good. Utah is very good at not giving up explosives, right? Which is why Washington struggled early and they ran the ball on Washington. I'm going to tell you something. In the Pac-12, we've talked about, UCLA is really physical. Oregon State's really physical. Oregon can get physical. This is not a team that I expected to call as at times as physical as those teams. Mm-hmm. They can rough you up, man. I'm telling you. And it starts with Coleman, and then just when they're in 2nd and 3, they're really dangerous, because when they have a two-way go in this offense, even though they don't throw it down the field, Jedd Fisch, man, this team. They're the kings of getting first downs.
Yep.
and it's a lot of fun to watch because it's workmanlike. I told you, it's the least flashy hot streak in the country right now. But I think that such fundamentally sound football works against Colorado, right? Works against USC. It's why they were in the game against USC. I got one other fun one for you on the safe football. Okay, their first 2 games, Arizona, they turned the ball over 7 times. Okay, well, there was a loss to Mississippi State mixed in there. Right, their last 8 games, 5 turnovers total. Wow. They play as safe a football game. They don't beat themselves, and I think Utah gets a lot of credit for when they don't beat themselves. Arizona. That's why they're winning these games. They don't beat themselves. And honestly, like 3/4 of the time, that's the key to the whole thing. You want to win, start with not beating yourself, and that's exactly what they're doing.
Especially in college football, man, because it's a sloppy game, obviously, than the NFL, and if you let your opponent mess up, then, yeah, it sometimes works out for you. Jonah Coleman, 5'9", 225 pounds. This guy is a tank,
animal.
Man. Tank. Just for comparison, Audric Estime, I believe, is 5'11" and 227. So he's 2 inches taller and only 2 pounds heavier than Jonah Coleman. Another guy, Jawar Jordan, who's right around that same size at 5'9", he's 185 pounds. Actually, Jawar Jordan's 5'10", 185 pounds. So an inch taller, 40 pounds lighter. Jonah Coleman's a tank. Not only that, he's a great runner, obviously. He's been a really good receiver for them, too. He's had about 300 yards after the catch this year. He's a really, I think he's one of the most underrated running backs in the country. I feel like every time we do a show, we talk about underrated running back.
Their screen game with him and with the receivers is as good as any team in the country. They really like him in the screen game. Jed Fish, I'm telling you, if you're going to run like a conservative offense in the screen game and through your tailback, they are doing it to a T, man. It's spectacular.
Yeah, Coleman right now 11th among all running backs in the country with 277 receiving yards this year. And Michael Wiley, the other running back there, has done a really good job in the receiving game as well. So I love Jonah Coleman. One matchup. So I feel like when we do these matchups, we always talk about the overarching themes of these teams. I kind of wanted to, for this game and the next game we're talking about, I kind of wanted to go player-on-player matchup that I think is really, really fun. Jonah Ellis against Jordan Morgan, man, is going to be an awesome matchup. If you like the NFL draft, if you're a fan of the NFL draft, you're going to want to tune into this game. So Jonah Ellis, Utah's edge defender, has 13 sacks this year. That's the most among Power 5 edge defenders. Jordan Morgan, though, 89.4 pass blocking grade. That's the 5th among all tackles in the country. Ellis and Morgan, right now on PFF's 2024 NFL Draft Big Board, are both top 50 prospects in the draft. So if you're a fan of the draft, and not only that, Jonah Ellis, most of the time, lines up against the left tackle. So we're going to get a lot of reps from Jonah Ellis against Jordan Morgan. So it might not be, it's going to be a big matchup for the game, obviously, but it might not be, the big overarching deciding the game one. But if you're a fan of the NFL draft, man, this is a matchup that I'm really excited for because Jonah Ellis kind of came out of nowhere and all of a sudden now he's a top 50 pick probably in the NFL draft. Jordan Morgan had a great year last year, has another great year this year. He's not only 5th in pass blocking grade, he's 5th in overall grade as well. He's also probably going to be a top 50 pick. So we got 2 early second-round picks going up against each other basically every single rep in this game. It's one of the best one-on-one matchups, I think, of the entire weekend, especially if you're a fan of the NFL draft.
That's a great one. And we've been on Ellis for weeks, man. I mean, I'll tell you, the pass rush arsenal and especially the hustle late in the play, the only thing I wonder is with Arizona getting the ball out so quickly if Ellis can get to some of those hustle plays. But his arsenal is as good as anybody in the country. I'm telling you. And this is going to be a fun tape watch for the draft for both of these guys. It's a prime matchup. And Ellis, the big thing with Ellis in the game itself is he's really, when Utah only sends 4, when they don't blitz, and they haven't been blitzing as much lately, he's really the one guy that gets to the quarterback. Mm-hmm. There's not a whole lot else up front. He's the one guy that wins those one-on-one matchups. And honestly, especially if they can cover well and get Arizona to hold the football a little bit longer, then you might see Ellis start making a difference in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. So ultimately, Dalton, who wins this Pac-12 game?
I like the Wildcats here for a 5th straight. I think the brand of football in this game, really physical. Utah's run defense is not the greatest. I like what Jed Fish has going with this safe brand of football, with a backup quarterback, with Coleman, the physicality. They've leaned into it. They have an identity. And I really like that. And Utah, I think Utah like kind of sort of has an identity. We know what they want to do, but I'm also going to give you some splits right here that our Utah fans are going to kill us for. But look, the home and away splits are just unreal. Okay. Yeah. Offensive grade at home, 75.2, which would put you in like the top 50 or so, somewhere around like Maryland or something like that's a good comp, right? On the road, 61.6, which is 1 point better than Iowa is for the season. Okay. Defense is even crazier, all right? At home, their defense grades a 90.6, which is like would be somewhere I think in the top 12-ish, right? Mm-hmm. On the road, a 58.6, which I believe would be the worst in the Power 5. Actually, it might be the second worst. It's like somewhere in the bottom 5 of the country. Mm. Basically, at home, they're pretty much like the number 22 team that you see there, or like a top 30 team. And on the road, by the grading at least, they've played like one of the worst teams in the Power 5. Yeah. It's a huge split when they're on the road. And I know they played Washington last week, and they played a reasonably good game, but they've spent all year outperforming their underlying metrics. And especially, it's not the same team on the road. And it was the reason I still was. Now, again, they didn't get blown out like I thought they would. They went out and played at least a good first half and then got shut out in the second half. But it's kind of the thing. You can't be that inconsistent. And I look at Arizona, especially offensively, I look at how consistent they are right now and what they do. And what there's not a lot of variance with Arizona, whereas with Utah, there kind of is. I think they're one chance in this game. They have to cover really well. I would come up and press man. I would make Fafita throw it over the top. Challenge him. Let's go press man. Let's go, man. Let's like that game plan that they came out with against Florida earlier in the year. Heavy blitz, heavy man coverage. Let's go. Yeah. I mean, and Utah's got nothing to lose at this point. They're not going to win the conference or anything like that. I think that's their only chance. Yeah. Of forcing the action here. If they let Arizona just do what they want on offense, Arizona's going to win this game, and I like Arizona to win this game. I'm going to take them 31-24.
Yeah, I'm taking Arizona too. I'm taking them 24-21. I think the Wildcats, man, with Jonah Coleman, that offense is playing so sound right now. I know Utah had a really impressive game offensively against Washington on the road against Washington, put up 28 points against Washington.
They had an impressive first half.
Then they fell apart in the second half, of course. Yeah. But, then I just think, man, I don't know. I don't trust Utah's offense enough for me to pick them in this game, even though I like what Utah's done this year. I just think Arizona's so hot right now. I'm taking Arizona 24-21. I think the Wildcats win their fourth top 25 game in their last 5 games. It's been an unreal hot streak, and I think it continues on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. And again, it's a hot streak, but it's also stable. It's very stable in their identity. It's not like Miami earlier in the year when they were hot to start was like deep ball, high variance, like wild stuff, right?
Right.
They're very like Jed Fish, man. What a job he's doing. I'm just being real. They play such stable, like they don't have the talent of an Oregon, but like when I talk about Oregon plays like really stable, consistent football, Arizona's in that vein, man. I'm telling. When they get more talent in there, if he keeps coaching like this, they're going to be really good.
He's going to be an interesting name for some jobs as well. I mean, there's a rumor that the UCLA job might open up with Chip Kelly. Jed Fish might not be a bad hire there. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of interesting jobs that might open up that Jed Fish might be a candidate for, man. It's going to be really interesting.
They're a fun one. Is it the Arizona teams are also going to the Big 12? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, they're going to the Big 12. Yeah, so
they're another kind of there's some dark horse factor in there I kind of like in the Big 12.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you.
It is crazy that this is a team that lost to Mississippi State, who just fired their head coach, and beat Stanford by 1 point. And since that Stanford game, they've been great. I mean, they lost to Washington by 7, they lost to USC by 2, and then they won 4 straight, including, like I said, 3 top 25 teams, and they got a 4th one this weekend. So we're both taking Arizona in this game. I know our Utah watchers and viewers are not going to be very happy with that, but I just like the Wildcats in this game, man.